Just give us the thumbs up when we are live.
It looks like we are now, yeah.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are today. We are so happy you've joined us today. We'll give everyone a few minutes just to get in. We are iconic.com, and we have a wonderful presentation for you today, wonderful discussion. We're going to be discussing our original film, The Great Unknown. And boy, is it something that we are really excited about talking to you today. I am Lisa Watts. I'm the head of marketing at iconic.com, and I have a wonderful panel here with me today. I cannot wait to jump in. We have film director and filmmaker Christianne Van Wijk. We have the well-renowned global speaker, author, and researcher, the great David Icke. We also have psychic guide, Lauda Leon, and we have Isabella Greene, who is a metaphysical specialist here to talk to us today about The Great Unknown. So The Great Unknown streamed live yesterday on iconic.com, and we hope you all had an opportunity to watch. So we're going to be taking your questions. So please drop your questions in the chat. We are definitely excited to hear all of what you'd like to know from us. So just a few minutes to come in, and I'm going to give the panel an opportunity just to say hello while we start to see your questions come in. Anna, would you like to say hello?
Hello. I'm looking forward to receiving the questions. I'm curious how many people have already watched the film as well, and to hear some feedback maybe. And just so you know that whatever you've seen last night, that's literally only the beginning. We're going to be looking at so many more aspects, and it will go deeper and deeper and deeper. So yeah, nice you're all there, guys.
Great. We have a few people just coming in. David, like to say hello to our world streaming audience?
Right. Can you hear me right? I've just unmuted myself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very strange position for me, being unmuted. Or being muted, that is. No, that's in Europe. Yeah, this is a subject that quite clearly affects everybody, because thank goodness we don't stay here forever. And the question is, what happens when we leave? And that's what these series of films focus upon. And it's something that's fascinated me and focused my attention even more so in the last few years. And it's kind of a strange thing when you think about it, that we've had all these generations and apparently thousands of years of quote evolution, and here we are in 2024, and it's still a mystery. What happens when we leave? People have different ideas, you know, I get judged by God or whatever, or the reincarnation cycle of Buddhism and so on in the East. But it's still kind of a mystery. And that's worth asking the question, why? Why is it still a mystery? Why don't we still know? And I think in answering that question, a vast panorama opens up, in which not only the mystery of the afterlife it comes into focus, but actually how that connects with everyday life that we experience in this world, in this reality. So it's a massive subject, and it's incredibly under discussed and under communicated. So I'm really pleased that this series is happening. I wrote a series of books myself, a trilogy. One's called The Trap, one's called The Dream, and one's out in September the 1st called The Reveal, which is all about these subjects, because it's not only that like I say, it's about what happens last week. Understanding that factor is fundamental to understanding where we are, why we are here, and actually who we are. So it's a fantastic subject.
That's absolutely wonderful, David, and we can't wait to hear, some of the feedback that you give us and some of the guidance that you give us as we move through this Q&A. So thank you so much for that. And at the end of our Q&A today, we'll talk a lot about some of the things that we're going to be doing together moving forward. Iconic is really going to be engaging with our audiences from now here on out in a lot of different ways, just helping us all get through this, untrapping our sins, so to speak. Isabella, we'll give you an opportunity, and some questions are coming in. We're still waiting for people to come in, but just a greeting from you, please, to our global audience. That would be wonderful.
Hi, greetings to you all, and thank you for joining us today on this very special day when this revolutionary documentary premiered yesterday. The first part premiered yesterday, and I watched it regardless of how tired I was. I started watching it and I couldn't stop because it blew my mind how deep, how brilliant the material is, and it really opens the whole new perspective for so many people. And personally, I really appreciated a few things there. For example, the Plasma Born 369 was talking about astral projecting into the lower astral, which he says technically is hell. And that's straight out of my book, because I was doing the same thing and learned the same skills completely in a different world, different reality when I was a teenager. And so just to see that things are on the same page from different perspectives and different dimensions, and people are coming into this awareness now this year more than ever. I think humanity is ready for the next level of understanding of things, and the documentary couldn't be better timed if we tried. So thank you. It's a great honor to be part of it and to share this information with you.
Thank you, Isabella. And Lauda, from you, please.
It's
We'd love to hear from
great,
you.
deep honor to be here and to be a part of this. I have been waiting a long time. I can say that I remember when I was 5 years old and I saw that the entire sky was netted. I physically saw the net, and I couldn't unsee it because it was physical. And I was astounded that nobody could see it. So I recall from the moment I came in, the consciousness wasn't ready for this. And so I feel like slowly but surely now it is to a tipping point of no return. So now we're really going into the horizon. And I think we've all been waiting. And I think this documentary is absolutely necessary and really unlike anything that has been done. So I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for the consciousness level that finally we are approaching, because I really feel that there's going to be a lot of things that are going to blow our minds.
I completely agree.
Yeah. I am deeply honored to be a part of this. This is, yeah.
So great.
Truly.
So good. We have our first question. So thank you, Laura. We have our first question coming in, but I see Chris, I call her Chrissy affectionately to the world. Chrissy, I see you have your hand up. Is that do you have a question for us, or?
No, I just wanted to make a comment, but I can weave that into whenever there's a question.
Your comment, please, Chrissy, please. Go ahead.
No, just ask the question seriously. I can weave it in there. It's
okay. So this is sort of a long question. So the question came, this is definitely a time when we are all doing our search. And Chrissy, you made mention that in the film, why you really was inspired by this film. Can you go into a little bit of the details now?
Yeah, well, it's interesting what Lauda was saying, that it feels like the time is now, and it's very ironic to say that. Well, we've got Kerry to thank for that. I mean, Kerry, David's daughter, of course, passed away in December 2023, and so that's a slight silver lining in it, is that it spurred me on to make this film. It's a very confrontational thing to see someone die, and it's one of those moments, I guess it's similar to when you see a baby being born. It's one of those moments where all the mundane and ordinary just goes out of the window for a moment, and there's only the now when that happens. And it was such an important moment for me because Kerry was very lively and a very big personality, and to suddenly see someone not, lying still. And this question really, really deeply came up, like, what has happened with her? Like, where is she? It can't just have stopped like that. I don't want to believe that the consciousness has to have dispersed into something else, whether it's something in form or something formless. And I couldn't let that question go. I was just like, no, where is she? Where is she? Where is she? This is just too bizarre. And then, of course, when you listened to near-death experience stories, a lot of the time, these people say that when they were out of body, their life just felt like it was just a drop in the ocean. It felt like a second. And then I thought, well, isn't it absolutely bizarre then that we are focusing all our attention on a second instead of focusing our attention on eternity? Why don't we know more about this? Why are we frightened of it? Why are we avoiding the subject? And I thought, well, if these questions keep playing in my mind, I'm going to have to do something with it. And obviously, I'm a filmmaker, so that would be the way I would create something. And I think it's very important to know that I did not want to make a film showing only one perspective. I saw some comments on Twitter earlier today where people say, oh, New Age Love and Light, I'm not going to watch this. And first of all, I thought, of course, well, you haven't even watched it yet, because I really wanted to highlight all sorts of different perspectives, the Tibetan perspective, the Christian perspective, the perspective from near-death experiences, from researchers, from people who've had out-of-body experiences, from scientists. And so in that way, I want to invite the viewer to kind of maybe become aware, have they got a strong belief system, or can they be open to hearing other perspectives? And of course, there's a myriad of accounts of people who've had near-death experiences. And there's a lot of crossovers, but there are also a lot of different aspects. And I guess that's due to the perspective of the perception of the person. So whoever's watching the 4 films, they will come out of it realizing that it's not one perspective that we're highlighting. So yeah, that's in a nutshell my motivation for making the film.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I see a lot of questions coming in. Where can we see the film? And you can see the film streaming live on iconic.com. And it's there streaming. You can become a member. It's a subscriber-based channel. So please feel free, iconic.com. We also have a ticker in the bottom of our screen, so you can also see there. But we are running a promo this month. For your first month is £1.99 or $2.35 if you're in the States. So we have a next question that's coming in, and the next one is to David. David, in your experiences of all of the research that you have done, have you ever had a near-death experience? Can't hear you, David. You must be muted.
Hold on, I'm muted. There you go.
There you are.
No, I've not had a near-death experience. I've watched the England football team play a few times, which was close. But what I've done is come from I think a perspective of logic, really, to the conclusions. And my conclusions from that perspective are very much in line with Lauda and Isabella, who've experienced this directly through near-death experiences. And, you know, when I was a kid, I rejected mainstream religion, which I still do. The idea that we are put in this world for a few seconds or 100 years and then are judged for eternity by God doesn't seem very bloody fair to me, and don't seem very logical. But there are many religions that believe that. At the same time, I didn't believe another religion, which is mainstream Orthodox science, just a religion. You look at how they operate, same as a religion. They have an orthodoxy, they have a belief system that's unquestionable. They have holy books, which are the Orthodox scientific books. And I rejected that as well. The idea that you are a cosmic accident and came into this world for a few seconds or 100 years again, and then disappear into nothingness because you came out of nothingness, basically. That don't make sense to me either, never did. And when I started looking for, well, what's the alternative? And, you know, you get on with your life and your career and football and television, all that stuff. But eventually I came around to saying, well, okay, what is it then? What is happening? And I read enough about reincarnation. I've read enormous amounts about it now to conclude that it's real. I mean, if you look at some of the work that psychologists have done, people like Ian Stevenson, who've listened to children who've described in detail previous lives, just little kids, in detail. And when he's gone away and checked it out, what they claim to have experienced, to have been, if you like, he's found, and they've found, others that have done it, extraordinary confirmation of the detail, real confirmation of the detail. And there's other television programs, The Ghost in My Child, I think one was called, or words to that effect. There are other books like, you know, about the same subject. And the correlations are phenomenal. So my conclusion was reincarnation is real. But the next thing was, why do we reincarnate then? And if you take the religions of the East, particularly, it's to learn lessons to evolve. Because, you know, when I was looking at this whole subject, I've traveled the world a lot. I've been to more than 60 countries in my life. And, you know, enormous numbers of the human race are not having a good time. You know, there's a lot of people in the West not having a good time now. But in places like Africa, Asia, South America, Central America, there's all these people, teeming numbers, who are trying to survive another day. And so what I thought was, okay, I can understand if consciousness can come into this world and maybe, you know, be tricked into this, coming into this world. But having experienced it, you ain't going to come back. I mean, when your consciousness leaves the body, you're going to say, well, that weren't any fun. I ain't coming back here. But through this reincarnation cycle, consciousness does. So why? And that's when I concluded that this reincarnation cycle is not about evolution and learning lessons, although you learn from whatever experiences you have all the time, hopefully you do. But it's actually a trap. It's a trap to keep us in here. And this synced very much with what I concluded just after the millennium, which is that this reality is actually a simulation. It's the equivalent of a virtual reality software program. And the next thing that I started to realize was that this simulation doesn't just happen at this level. There are other levels to it, like levels that known in esoteric circles as the astral dimension, which is, parts of that are very, very close to this one on the frequency band. And that actually what the wheel of samsara is a recycling mechanism where consciousness leaves the human world, if you like, enters this wheel and comes back in another form, in another body, and with another personality. And this is, of course, far out in the extreme to most people. But the more that I've researched this, the more that I've listened to the experiences of people like Lauda and Isabella and others, the more this seems to be the basis of what reincarnation is all about. And then you go into the area which Isabella talks about a lot, I know, and writes about in her book. How do you break the cycle? Because, one of the things, and I'll be brief and finish on this, but one of the things that I've been doing for the last year or more, and ever more vehemently, I have to say, is point out that what we call the alternative media is holding people in an eddy in the river. And it's holding people on the level of the conspiracy to enslave humanity is about political manipulation, financial manipulation, manipulation of wars and all that stuff. And yes, it is. But that is only one level of it. What you realize in the end, and I know that this series of films goes into this more deeply in later films that you'll see, that this conspiracy is founded at every level on control of human perception. Because what we perceive, we believe, what we believe, we experience. And so you have the perception, say, of, quote, COVID, that there's a deadly virus. That's your perception. Your behavior, it results from that perception. And that's fine. All that needs to be exposed. But when you get into the areas that these films are talking about, and later books talk about, and our guests talk about, the very foundation of human control is giving us a completely fake and fraudulent sense of the very reality that we're experiencing. And one of the reasons that death is such a no-go area for most people and is not explored in the way that it should. Why, after all these generations and apparently thousands of years, we're still like, what happens when we die? You start to realize why that knowledge is massively kept from us and has been kept from us, because it opens up a vista that not only explains the afterlife, but actually explains this human life and what's happening now. And that's how important these films are and this subject is.
Thank you very much, David. That was really great. And there's so much to explore. There's so much, as you mentioned, that it just goes deeper and deeper that we're just unaware of. And these films and Iconic and the work that you've done over the last 35 plus years of just helping us now get to the point that we can really understand what's happening. That said, there's another question that's coming in the chat, and this one is for Lauda. And it's in line sort of with David, where you've led us to thus far. Lauda, you speak of the simulacrum. And so the question is, can you explain what it is and then who created it?
So the simulacrum, which is an interface system, originally, I mean, this is a big question and it would, to really go into it, I'm going to just summarize. So originally, there was a counterfeit copy, a facsimile copy of the universe created. And this was undetectable, so a lot of the souls were trapped in this facsimile copy. Now, the facsimile copy, this is a very, very, very ancient AI, if you will, creating a simulacrum, which is a simulation, but you have an interface system, your body, everything that is created to be within this facsimile version ends up being an interface system to the simulacrum. So it works with your psyche and it creates that interface reality, that theater that is created. Within that theater, you can have what is a backdrop reality. So the simulacrum is like a living AI simulation where you are interfacing with this. And our job is, because of the memory swipes, is to remember our origin, who we are, and the fact that this is a facsimile version. This is not the original verse. So I know my first memory before I was born, just to summarize why I spoke about the net when I saw it when I was 5 over the entire sky. My first memory is I was told, do not, under any circumstances, fall asleep, because this is the most dangerous reality in existence. Do not fall asleep. I wasn't being told not to sleep. I was told, do not allow my consciousness to sleep. Now, when I was 5 and I saw the net system, I understood, even though I was 5, I wasn't really 5, right? I came into this body to do what I came in to do. I understood this is a part of that simulacrum. This is a part of the containment system. This is frequency net, where we are literally contained. It's a containment system. So this was, to me, confirmation of why it was so important not to fall asleep, that your consciousness is the key, your spirit consciousness is the key, and remembering is the key. Now, there were things that were done for me to remember a lot, because in coming in, they fry you. There's an electrical system that comes in and just electrocutes you almost. It's like a shock. So there were things that were put in so that I wouldn't forget. Now, you live your life, you live in the simulacrum, and you don't realize that the simulacrum is engaging with you and your interface system, with your psyche, your belief systems, your programming, and you're a part of the machine as an interface system to create that backdrop reality, that false reality. And along with the false reality is what? It's a false identity. It's a false life. It's a thefted life, a stolen life. you're now something else. In summary.
Very,
Lisa,
very
Lisa, can I just say something there?
sure.
What you just heard is an amazing summary of the conclusions that I've come to from a completely different direction, but have come to the same exact conclusion as that from a very different source of information, if you like. And that's what tends to happen, is that you can enter the arena, if you like, from different directions and with different experiences, but you come to the same conclusion. I mean, if that had been me speaking, then I wouldn't have been surprised. That and the completely different source of information that's led us both to the same conclusion.
So that's amazing, because there's a question that has come into. Isabella, please.
Hi, I just wanted to chime in really quickly.
You're on
What
mute,
David
I
said.
think, Isabella. Can't hear you.
I did unmute.
Yeah, go on, Isabella.
Okay. So what I wanted to chime in with what David said before about us being told from different perspectives about the evolution of the soul that's happening here. The reincarnation is supposed to be for the purpose of the evolution of the soul, but both me and Lauda tapped into the actual fabric of the soul, the innate composition of that field, the omnipresent, the pre-simulation, the beginning, the base reality. And when you were there, that does not require any evolution, because everything is already there. Everything and nothing at the same time, but it's all already there. And Lauda talks about that through her near-death experience, and I talk about that through my deliberate venturing into that field lately. And then I wanted to also mention something to the degree what Lauda was just talking about, that she was saying that we come in and we are trapped here. And now I get a lot of clients who ask me, why would I come in if I knew that I was going to be trapped here? If I was a higher consciousness, why would I actually go to Earth? And there was one session recently that brought the information, where I received the information that a lot of souls, cosmic souls, that chose to go into developing world to bring consciousness, like Lauda is mentioning right there, right? Not fall asleep. We came in before the system was installed. So there was actually a point in history and that human evolution, not human evolution, the evolution of the planet, or I would even say the ownership of the planet, where the ownership switched to the current owners. They installed the system, and that's the same system that is running the reincarnation cycle, and it's also the same system that's running on our planet right now in the covert blah blah blah. And that is when we were already here, and it was installed during our lifetime, and we found out the hard way that we could not get out. So there was a point in history of this planet when that was actually created, and I got the confirmation in a session recently. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. That's awesome. And so the question that I'm seeing that is really being repeated in the chat right now, and this question is to all of you: how do we break out of it?
Well, I will have a go at that from one perspective, and I'm sure Isabella and Lauda will come from theirs. But, we have to be persuaded that we're somewhere we're not, so that we will not question where we are. And, when I was, as I've gone through my life, I have been staggered at how little little questioning there has been of who are we, where are we, what are we doing here? And it should surely be right at the center of human questions. And what tends to happen is, let's put this in this kind of perspective. One of the great things that comes from AI and Wi-Fi and computers is that it gives us the analogies and the symbols that people understand, because it's part of life now, to explain what this simulation is and how it works. You know, Lauda talked there about that we are interfacing with this simulation. Now, you can symbolize that, even more than symbolize it. You know, it's very close to the truth, by a computer interfacing with Wi-Fi. You know, if there was Wi-Fi in this room, where is it? I can't see it. If it was here, it's not. It's a wired room. But if it was, where is it? Can't see it. But somehow this computer can tap in, tune in, log in to this Wi-Fi field, which carries the entirety of the internet, and you can tap into it in America or Australia or South America or wherever, Europe. And what it does is take information in the radiation field, the electromagnetic field, and transforms it, decodes it into what we see on the screen. So when people say, tell me about the internet, people say, well, it's graphics and it's videos and it's pictures. Well, yes, it is, but only on the screen. Everywhere else, it's an information source, an information field, Wi-Fi, which is decoded into that state, and that state only exists on the screen. And what I've kind of understood as the years have gone on and the research has gone on, is that the human body, I've been calling the human body since the 1990s a biological computer, and it has the same basic role. You've got the simulation field, which is a field of information, and the body is decoding that information into the reality we think is outside of us, but actually it's not. It's in here. It's in the decoding processes of the biological computer, just as Wi-Fi, the internet, is in the decoding processes of the computer. And when you then start to apply this to the mainstream scientific explanation, you find that they sync in the sense that what mainstream science says is that the five senses, that's the interface massively with the simulation. The five senses are taking waveform information, frequency information. They're turning it into electrical information, which is then communicated to the brain. And the brain then decodes that into holographic digital information, which we perceive to be the external world. And, you know, if you are trying to enslave someone perceptually, you want them to perceive through the five senses and the visual senses the tiniest band of frequency that you can get away with. In other words, the tiniest band of frequency that allows function, but not revelation. Like, see, you don't want the body decoding system of the, say, the visual senses to have such a wide acuity of vision that it can see into those frequency levels where the controllers are. And so you have this extraordinary situation whereby, according to mainstream science, the electromagnetic field, which is basically human reality, is 0.05% of what exists in the universe in terms of energy in all its forms. And visible light, which is the only band of frequency that we can see, everything you're seeing now is within this band of frequency. Visible light is a smear of the 0.005%. So we're basically blind. And the reason, as this film talks about, and the film series will go on to go deeper into, the reason that when people have near-death experiences, what they describe is when they leave the body, an extraordinarily different reality, which doesn't have the same, quote, laws of physics or any of it. And what's happened, this is what death is. Death is simply a transfer of attention from what the body is decoding and delivering as a reality to going outside of the body and transferring your attention to that. When this ceases to function, quote, dies, and when it ceases to function, it ceases to decode this level of the simulation, and thus consciousness is freed to experience a completely different reality because it's left the decoding prison, which is equivalent to putting on a headset. You know, you put on a headset in a virtual reality game, and you can go on the internet, go on YouTube, and put in headset compilations or words to that effect. And you'll see people in an empty room or in a house or something. They'll put on a headset of a virtual reality game, and within seconds, their reality is completely transformed by what's coming in through the headset. And what are these headsets and these other things like the gloves and the audio in these virtual reality games? What are they tapping into? The five senses. They're overriding the five senses. And therefore, they're delivering a different reality. People are screaming. They're falling off their chairs. They're falling over. They're in horror. And what they can do is go, whoa, oh, gee, it's just a game. Phew. Now, if the body is the of a headset, then to come into this reality, you do it via a body. You do it via a headset. You do it via this decoding system. So when you come in, what it's decoding is your reality because it's delivering it to you. And the idea is to so focus the attention of consciousness that it believes that this is all real, when it's just an induced dream, in effect. And, you know, just finishing up, I called the last book I wrote, The Dream, for this reason. If you are having a dream and you believe it's real, then you are emotionally pulled into the dream. You are mentally pulled into the dream. You might wake up with a start going, oh my God, I've had a nightmare. But if you have a different type of dream, and almost everyone will have had them, where I think they call them lucid dreams or whatever, it's a dream, but you know it's a dream. So you are observing the dream. And as a result, you are not emotionally pulled in and mentally pulled in as you are in a, quote, normal dream. And when it comes to, on one level, there are many other aspects to it, as we'll hear shortly. But on one level, it's about living in the dream, knowing it's a dream. And I can tell you from experience that when you start to do this, so much that pulls you in emotionally, and things that you think are so important and so, Ray, you go on Twitter and they don't matter at all. They're just part of the drama that pulls you in and encourages you to believe that the dream is real. And so if you leave the body still with an attachment to the dream or an attachment to the illusions of the dream, then you'll probably end up on the wheel of samsara and come back as with another personality in another situation. But if you can break that cycle, you can break out of that drama, you can see it's a dream and experience it as such, observe the dream without being pulled into it, then you're preparing yourself very much more for when you leave the body, that you leave all these different levels of this simulation trap.
Wow, thank you so much. Isabella, would you like to add to that? Add to David's comments?
I would like to just continue that same train of thought there, because the body is the simulation machine, the computer that receives all that and makes it all very real. But there are techniques that are available to train yourself, go out of body at will while you're still alive, and pave the way into the primordial field, the innate state, the infinite reality, if you wish, or the base reality. And my recommendation as to how to get out of the whole system and the whole reincarnation cycle as well is to do exactly that, to learn how to move your life force, your soul, if you wish, out of the physical body while you're still alive, and practice it enough so that you can, at the moment when you're passing, you can just repeat the same thing and direct yourself straight into that field of omnipresence, or the system, or not the system, the field that is before any systems, the innate actual fabric of what we truly are. And here's one thing to remember when we do that. And David also mentioned that now the astral dimension is not it. Where people go into during the near-death experiences, except Lauda and just a few other people who went straight into the divine field, or they went deep, like Lauda says right there, right into the deep. But the ones who go into the astral dimension with all of the pretty, beautiful, rainbow-colored and angelic-looking beings, that's the next level of the simulation, as above, so below. And even in the book, Yogananda's book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, his guru goes to a different planet, but he continues repaying the karma. But it's on a different level, and they cross-incarnate, they come back to Earth and go back to that reality. And then when Yogananda in that book says, surely God had come up with something more challenging for us in the afterlife than just the liberation or the sounds of the harps. And so it's expected that when you get out of this simulation, you're in the next simulation, which is a little prettier, but it still looks, it still is doing the same thing. We're still doing the same thing. So the idea to get out of the whole structure, including the astral dimension and the low astral dimension that is mentioned in the first part, and all of the beautiful visuals that I mentioned in the first part of the documentary that are all upper, the pretty ones are the upper astral, the dark ones are the low astral, still the same system, still a part of the matrix. So to train yourself to go out of body, bypassing that is possible while you're still alive, and this is the way out. That's my recommendation.
Thank you for that. And we've said a lot, and there's a question that is coming up, and I'm going to address this both to Chrissy and to Lauda, and of course, Isabella and David, please step in. We've talked a lot about simulations. We talked a lot about religion, and the one question that is coming up is God. What is God, and how does God play into the all of what you are speaking to? And when you start to talk about stepping in, stepping out, souls and spirits, just into consideration the perception that we all have of God. How does that tie into all of what we are talking about here right now?
Well, shall I pick that up, or is Isabella? Yeah, go, Isabella. Yeah.
Okay, so this depends on our conditioning entirely, because we have been trained to perceive God like the beings that installed the system and ran the system and are listed in the Bible and are talked about in the Bible. And the brilliant work of Paul Wallace decodes that and talks about that. These are exactly the beings, the archons, that we have been trained from the beginning of this system to believe to be our gods, and they are the ones running this system and their reincarnation cycle system. And these are the beings in the Bible. Of course, the question about Jesus comes in. Jesus, in my opinion, was an enlightened soul who came in to talk about that and say, do not follow these teachings, do not follow these that guidance, because that's false. And then there is a next level of the true God, if you wish, or what is God, something that has created everything, something that is the fabric of everything, and that is that field of omnipresence, that we call the absolute. And the scientists now like to call the quantum field of information. But from my perspective, that is the true source, and that is the real God, without personification into the figures that actually created and are running the system, and also the personification that the human mind takes as like a punishing and judgmental gods that are listed in many scriptures. So that would be my answer. So it depends on what your belief system is, but I just kind of broke down what we're looking at here when it comes to gods.
Shall I pick it up?
Can I just say something?
Just very quickly. Yeah. Well, no, let Lauda go. Let Lauda go. I'll come back later.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. When I was very little, I used to have this experience, and I just want to talk about it because it's actually an experience that was extremely profound and really painful. Whenever I would go to sleep, I would go to the origin before creation started, and I would experience the explosion of creation coming out of the deep. And it was terrifying. The moment creation became creation was utterly the most terrifying thing. And I cannot really explain this, but coming out of the deep, where it's the greatest nothingness, where everything stemmed out of. In that moment of creation, everything was literally everything in creation happened. And the way that I see prime creator, prime creation, is that we are that. we are creation experiencing creation, its own creation. So we have split off into every variation in existence, and it's an eternal thing. It's an infinite thing to experience itself ultimately. And that, I wanted to say that because to me, that is creator. And we are the emanation in body of that creation, experiencing itself.
Well, you know, one of the things that is a red flag is how so many religions say it's blasphemous to say that you are an expression of what they call God, what I call the infinite. And that is a red flag because for me, and this is highly controversial to a lot of people, I know, but I have been sometimes, that religions are there to entrap your perception. If you have a religious belief system, and I'm talking about also the religion of orthodox science, then certain areas are no-go areas. I know in the alternative media that there are vast tracts of it that are Christian believers. They have a right to be, but you can't have an open-minded exploration of what's happening if you have vast areas that you will not go into, because if you do, they're going to put your belief system under challenge. You won't go there. So you have to have a completely open mind. And this is fundamental to an earlier question about how do we get out of here. And you know, I concluded a long time ago, for instance, that the Old Testament God is actually symbolic of the consciousness, if you like, the schismatic, inverted consciousness that's behind this simulation trap. And if you read the Old Testament, you're dealing with a bloodthirsty tyrant. And we're supposed to believe, because they tell us, that the God of the Old Testament, the God of the New Testament are the same, quote, God. It's where you get the Christians, Christian belief in the Old Testament as well. And whatever the religion is, it's a belief system with a wall around it. And anything that limits your perception of possibility, your perception of your own infinite identity, is good for the simulation because it holds you in the trap. And, you know, for me, what people call God, I call the infinite. It's infinite possibility for a start. And so within infinite possibility, paradoxes to the five sense mind are no longer paradoxes, because within all possibility, everything is and it isn't. It's everywhere and it's nowhere. And it has to be, because it's all possibility, therefore everything's possible. And we are all possibility. We are an expression of that all possibility, that infinite, eternal exploration of forever. That's who we are. Now, when we remember that, our vibrational state starts to rise very, very quickly and starts to expand very, very quickly. And we're out of here. What they need to do, when I say they, I mean that which is manipulating the simulation at its different levels, is to keep us in a low vibrational state. So they do that by continually keeping us in states of fear, anxiety, resentment, regret, hatred, all these low vibrational emotional states, all expressions of fear in the end, because that holds us within the vibrational limits of the simulation. And so the more you get pulled into the dramas of the dream, the more this this impacts upon your frequency state, which impacts upon your ability to get out of the trap in all its levels. And so the way they've set it up, and Isabella indicated it there, is that we come into this world, and I was very interested. There's a very great source of information, and Lauda's one of them, that remember their incarnation. Now, in Lauda's case, it syncs with what I'm saying, but in other cases, they explain it away in another way. Oh, I'm just coming in to evolve and all that stuff. But there is a common theme among those people, which Lauda will talk about, I'm sure, in a second. And that is that stunning level of energetic density that you enter when you come into the human world. And that's a reason we need to be a bit kind and understanding of ourselves, because this is a enormous challenging place that we're in, because it's such a dense, low vibrational place. And so we come in and we experience a human life in this density. And then we'll obviously do things as you go through life that create what they call karma as part of the trap. And then you leave the body and you go to another level of the simulation, which, as Isabella indicated, is the astral. And because it doesn't have the density or anything like the density of the human world, which is a very narrow band of frequency, it seems like heaven. It seems like, oh my goodness me, this is fantastic. The number of near-death experiencers who say, I've never experienced anything like it. And then you go, but you believe in reincarnation, right? Oh yeah. What do you mean? You've never experienced anything like it. You must have experienced it loads of times. Why can't you remember that? Because of what Lauda talked about, this mind wipe that goes on as we enter the human world. And when we immediately leave it, before we get into that wheel of samsara again, that mind wipe is still there. So you don't remember it. Most people don't anyway, when you're here. And when you immediately leave, if you're not aware before that, you don't remember it either. So it's like, what's happening? What's going on? And so the way it works, and it's all about AI, as Lauda said, if you are a Christian believer, and there's reasons I explain in the books why this can be personified and personalized very easily through AI. When you, if you're a Christian believer, then you'll meet Jesus. If you're an Islamic believer, you might meet Muhammad or your version of that, etc., etc. And immediately you're caught in the trap. And because it feels so different because of the lack of density, comparably, with this world, you think it's heaven. But it's the fake heaven. Real, quote, heaven, if I call it that, is outside the different levels of the simulation, which we can get out of if we realize the game. And again, that's why I'm so vehement in my challenge to the so-called alternative media in saying, look, it's not just whether Trump wins. It's not just whether Farage wins or whatever in Britain. It's not about that. They are symptoms. The thing that's really entrapping us is our fake perception of self and our fake perception of the very reality that we're experiencing.
Can I just quickly add something?
Wow. That's all I say. So I really want to think we are actually a little over time, and I thank everyone who stayed with us throughout our time here. It's been about an hour, but it seemed like it was about 5 minutes. And I thank the panel enough for just sharing your stories, sharing your time, and really for all of those who are in the audience for being with us today. We are iconic.com, and the name of the film is The Great Unknown, and you can see it streaming now on iconic.com. Part 1 of 2 is streaming. Part 2 will be going live. We will be premiering on July 27th. So look out for that. And I want to give Chrissy just a moment just to give us a little sneak peek into what we can expect in part 2.
Hiya. Yeah, so it's 4 parts in total. And there's one every month coming out. But what I wanted to say, what I like so much about this discussion is that was the intention of making these films, is to get this discussion going, because many people might listen to this and go, oh, that's absolute rubbish, or maybe they'll resonate with something and not other things. But that it doesn't matter, because the fact that we are opening this subject now will set the wheel in motion, and that's for me a big. I'd be very happy to achieve that. What we can expect in other films is, of course, we're going to talk more about the trap. We're going to talk about the Tibetan philosophy, talk about the wheel of samsara, karma. We're looking into scientists who've looked into this and looking at the crossovers between science and near-death experiences. And also, what I think is very important, the Sufi said, die before you die. And so it's about preparation for death. What happens when we are dying? What actually happens physically? And how can we make it as pleasant as possible? And I guess if we have never looked into it and we're still in a state of fear, it might not be as pleasant an experience as it could be, because it's from what I understand from some people that I've spoken to that work in hospices, that it can be a very, very beautiful experience. I saw a comment yesterday on social media of somebody who said that she was working in a hospice. And she said that what she generally sees when people pass away is that it's actually a really beautiful experience, and people wake up to the illusion of everything. She said they're really ready to go, and they're really gently moving away from this reality. So yeah, we're looking into that in film 4 as well. Much to look forward to.
That's amazing. And again, there are 4 parts. This is a 4-part documentary. Part 2, July 27th, and a 4-part film. And July 27th, you will be able to see the second part. But right now, if you have not watched part 1, please go to iconic.com. Please tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors, tell your cousins, tell everyone. This is something that as Chrissy said, and as the panel has said, this is absolutely something that we need to know about now, while we are in this simulation, to wake up now and to help you wake up. That is what Iconic is about. That is what Icke has been doing the last 30 years. We're just now catching up to him. Thank you. And Lauda and Isabella, we cannot thank you enough for your time and for your participation in the film. And Chrissy, thank you so much. So, and lastly, if there are any questions, there were many questions that were in the chat, please feel free to send your questions to marketing@iconic.com, and we will do our best to post those and answer your questions. And we will have yet another Q&A after part 2 in July, so look out as well. And we really, again, appreciate your time, appreciate you coming out to spend this really important conversation with us. And as Chrissy said, we're just getting started. So part 1 of 4, and we look forward to seeing you again, and you bringing your friends and your family as well. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening, morning, day, wherever you are in the country or in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa.
There is no death. This is what we have to understand.
Entering this universe, it became denser, heavier, and, it actually felt painful.
I had no memory of my life, of Evan Alexander, of English, of this language, of this world, of humanity. Everything was gone. It was an empty slate. This world, this life in these material bodies, that is kind of vague and murky compared to that sharp, crisp, detailed, transformational, ultra reality in a realm that essentially is outside of space and time.
They do things at the hospice like death talks, and they're very, very blunt because a lot of people can't talk about death. So they actually call it the death talk.
Sterf voor je sterft.
Ja.
Dat is een uitdrukking die de christenen gebruiken, maar ook de Soefies. Yeshua zegt, bouw u geen huis op de brug van het leven.
The more that they can keep you in fear through not knowing what happens, the more that fear, because what is it? What is fear of death? It's fear of the unknown, one of the great fears of humanity.